Clarke, I'm going to quote some polls that you probably know exist, but I'm going to quote them anyway. Monmouth, 84% of non-white respondents said that they supported requiring photo ID. 62% of the Democrats said they supported requiring photo ID. That number rose to 87% among independents, 91% among Republicans. So 2 questions for you. How do you square prevailing public sentiment with your comments that voter ID is a burdensome proof of citizenship required, and your words, a bag of tricks to suppress black votes?
Thank you, Ranking Member Grassley. The department does not believe that voter ID laws on their face are unlawful. The department carries out its work by looking at the particular photo ID law that may have been adopted in a particular state. It looks at data with the support of experts to determine who has access to the particular forms of ID that are deemed qualifying under a particular law. We follow the facts and apply the law. Photo ID laws are not on their face invalid. It really depends on where that photo ID law has been instituted. It depends on the form of the ID and the kinds of ID that may be permissible on that law, and whether or not there are disparities in who has access to the particular category of IDs called for by a law.
The overwhelming majority of Americans, as according to this polls, support ID requirements. So do you think most Americans support voter suppression because you said it would suppress black votes?
Well, the department believes that our elections should be free from discrimination, and particular photo ID laws or purge programs or decisions to shut down polling sites may have a discriminatory impact on minority voters. And what we have found in the course of our work at the department is that these are fact-specific, fact-intensive and context-specific inquiries, Senator. These kinds of analyses are conducted by the career employees at the department who will look at a particular law, a particular photo ID law, to determine whether or not it runs afoul of the Voting Rights Act or the Constitution.
You gave me a department answer, and that's appropriate, but my question is whether you think these ID requirements that because Americans say they're for them and you say they're a way of suppressing black votes, do you think Americans support voter suppression?
Well, Senator, I think that these polls are helpful, but the department conducts its work by looking at the facts and applying the law.
Let me go on to another question. The Department of Justice recently filed a lawsuit against Georgia's election reforms. Will the Department of Justice bring enforcement action against New York for only allowing 10 days of in-person voting, or Delaware for never permitting early in-person voting? So if you say no to that, if you don't plan to bring an action, then how can you challenge Georgia's Senate Bill 202, which has more lenient provisions than both New York and Delaware?
Senator, I can't comment on pending investigations and if any such investigation exists, but what I can tell you is that the department is committed to protecting the right to vote in every corner of our country. In New York, for example, we recently resolved a matter involving a county that ran afoul of the National Voter Registration Act and the Help America Vote Act. We're committed to eliminating discrimination, root and branch, wherever it rears its head across our country.
I was very gratified to see that the 2020 presidential election, despite the pandemics, quote, featured the largest increase in voters between two presidential elections on the record, with 17 million more people voting than in 2016, end of quote. Additionally, in 2020, non-Hispanic blacks had a higher voting turnout than in 2016. 63% as compared to 60%. It would seem to me that we should be encouraging these high turnouts without restrictions. What about these statistics justify the imposition of preclearance?
Thank you, Senator. The statistics that you share certainly reflect a story of progress. But what the department has found is that in particular communities across our country, voting discrimination remains a real and ongoing problem. We saw this in Texas and North Carolina, where the department was engaged in long-standing Section 2 litigation against discriminatory measures in those places. We saw this recently in New York in the matter that I referenced involving violations of HAVA and the MVRA. We saw this in New Jersey, where we recently resolved a statewide NVRA claim. So while there has been progress, we know that voting discrimination remains alive and well in many local, state, and other jurisdictions across the country. And Section 5 has proven to be an important tool to identify and block voting discrimination.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, and as you know, some of us have been running in and out.
Mr. Chairman, do we have an order so that we will know when we're in the queue? Senator Blackburn here.
No, I know who you are. We've met before.
No,
Yeah.
I was just asking if
Well,
we had an order in the
the
queue.
Republican side would
Okay.
determine who
You
they
got,
would
okay.